Tom, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Eric. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good. Mid-range national champion, national record holder, 1,000-yard cleaning son of a gun. I can see why you're doing well.
Yeah, it feels good, man.
In in 1 year. Less than a year.
You know, if you can imagine a funnel, I'm kind of a slow learner, so my funnel is like wide, but it came down all into one area, and it seemed like everything just clicked. Everything came together, and for this past year, and just really been blessed and good support with everybody and good teammates and all, and you know, it clicked.
Man, has it clicked. So you shoot FTR, just to clarify, and I'm going to explain the difference in the classes. So F class has two classes, open and FTR. I shoot open class, which is, get to use the fancy mechanical rest and the heavy rifles with pretty much any caliber under 33 caliber, any cartridge we can use.
Okay.
We get to use the joysticks and all the fun stuff. But you, for some reason, you decided shoot the more challenging, and I will say it is more challenging, FTR category, where you're only allowed a 308 or a 223. You have to shoot off a bipod, and your weight limit's only, what is it, like 18.3 pounds or something?
18.18.
18.18 compared to our 22-pound weight limit that we haven't opened. So
yeah, a
lot more challenging. However, you've been shooting that thing like right up there with the open guys. Like it's amazing.
It's been pretty cool. You know, when I shot at Montana, I ended up shooting at 99.64%. And I was real happy with that. I mean, who couldn't be, right? I shot at Southwest Nationals at the 600 yard. It's real funny that I normally don't like shooting 600 yard. I use it for testing and that. When I was at Southwest Nationals, I went into it and I was doing a seating depth test, and we shot the 3-target 600. You know, the first one was like just hammering away. The second one was doing really well. The third one, I knew I had to adjust it. I wasn't going to like that one because I had to readjust a little bit, come down in my scope. So I was like, nope, that's not a good seating depth. But you know, I ended up winning that thing, and had some awesome shooters that were with me that were shooting fantastic. Brad Sov, he was right there, and Mike Soa and a bunch of other folks that were just top people, and I just got lucky, I think, but I did drop, I dropped at one point, on that 600 yard. And it's the funniest thing, everybody says, man, you're doing seating depth test during that. I said, yeah, but I really know my gun. I know my bullets. I know my cleaning regiment. I keep a good diary. I just know my gun and know my bullets pretty well. And, so my seating depth test was a real micro fine adjustment testing for the 1,000 yard, because that's where I was really focusing on. And I knew exactly when I pulled that trigger. I felt like I got stung by a bee. Same time I pulled that trigger, I yanked that thing, and I just closed my eyes. I thought, oh Lordy. And that was the one point I dropped on that.
Wait, you actually got stung by a bee, or you felt like it?
I didn't. It felt like it. Oh. It was really a weird deal. I might have, I was in the weird zone, but that was that point that I ended up dropping on that thing. But so at Southwest Nationals, and then that 1,000 yard, Brad Sov was on fire, man. I took second. He on the 1,000 yard, the overall aggregate, he beat me by probably 5 points and a few X's, but he was on fire. He's a great shooter.
Oh yeah. He's something else. Now, the 600 yard, you shot a 599. For the viewers that don't understand what we mean by that is, you shot 60 shots for record. You get sighters, obviously. Typically, it's unlimited sighters on the first one in the morning, and then 2 sighters the rest of the way. And then 20 shots for record. So total shots for record is 60. You shoot 20 in the morning, and then, there's a few relays. So typically the first 20 shots that you're going to score are going to be around 8:15 in the morning. The next go around is probably around 10 or 11 a.m. Then the next go around is about 1 or 2 p.m. So literally drastically different conditions. More sun, mirage, wind, all of the above. You are shooting at a 1 MOA target. The 10 ring is 1 MOA, which is 6 inches at 600 yards. The X ring is 3 inches at 600 yards. You shot 60 shots at a 1 MOA target, and you hit it 59 out of the 60. You missed that 1 MOA target one time.
Oh, that was rough.
That is impressive shooting. I know how you feel going, man, that one shot, but I mean, you won, right? That's how great it is. It's great shooting. You got the championship, but it is. We have lately, and I don't know when that started. It hasn't been long, where we just expect to shoot 600s all the time, and that was not the case a couple of years ago, 3 years. Nobody, especially in TR. Yeah, there's, I think the equipment's gotten better. Some people have really networked pretty well, where they're sharing some information, and people are just gaining a little bit more information. But, the biggest thing is equipment. I tell you what, one of the biggest things, and this person will say, nah, it's just you shot real well. But, Jay Christofferson, he made me a new die. I got talking with him. He makes dies. This is just the sweetest die I have. I don't like, I personally don't use bushing dies. And so Jay made me a die that does my full length sizing, my neck and shoulder bump. And then he also made me a die that, is my bullet seeder die. And, it's with the Newland, if I'm saying it right, his name, Newland or Nolan, bullet seeder with micro adjustment on it. Those two things are just amazing. Jeremy Smith's been doing, been doing my chambering. He's fantastic also. And I've settled in, I've done a lot of testing. I've settled in on the type of bullet, my barrel length, contour, throat, everything that I shoot with those bullets. Do you mind giving us a kind of full rundown of your equipment?
No, I don't mind at all. So I shoot a combination of bullets. I'll shoot the 208s, Bergers, and the 220X bullets. Both shoot really well. I got them shooting both really well. I've settled in on a Brux barrel, 4 groove. I use a 30-inch heavy Palma, and the chambers that I use a 180 throat on it, and have a good gunsmith, and that's it. I do have a stock that a good friend of mine made for me. Devin Wiggett and Tom Stevens donated some rare wood, and so they wanted to gift it to me, and so I use that stock. I use a Golden Eagle scope. I think they make a great scope, and their warranties are fantastic. The Berger bullets, like I was saying, N150 powder, I've settled in on that when I'm shooting, a heavy bullet like a 208. The N150 powder is a little bit slower. It's a little less, you get longer case life out of the Lapua brass that I use. And I used to shoot large primers, and I've switched over to small primer Palma brass. I still do shoot once in a while the large primer. I do have a lot of those primers and brass that I will shoot in different categories, different competitions. But that's basically what I shoot. Kind of Phoenix bipod.
What action do you use?
A Borden. I like the Borden action. It's super smooth. I've got the board and action from original back. Gosh, I've probably had that thing 7 years now, 7 years probably. And fantastic action, so smooth, reliable. Jim does a real good job with his product. If he's open to talk to you. He's a wonderful man, wonderful engineer, and just good company altogether. No kidding.
What about a trigger? What do you use for triggers?
So I use a jewel trigger. Okay. That's all I have on my guns. I've never had a problem with the jewel trigger. I've heard different stories that people have with the jewel, and they've gone away and they've gone to, whatever, Bix and Andy or whatever it might be. But I tell you what, I think one of the things that, as shooters and as I've progressed through my game a little bit, is you really got to have a good setup. And so I know when my firing pin drops, or when I'm testing, I measure it. I want to make sure that my firing pin isn't going to, puncture a primer, because I've always heard that if you do that on a jewel trigger, you're going to bust them. They're going to be worthless. Well, I think one of the things is that there's always a risk with everything. But if you have your setup, you have a good drop on your trigger, your firing pin, you know how long it's going to go. You have to set up maybe even your primer pockets to the depth that you are going to trim them to when you clean them out after shooting them. Clean your primer pockets. I size them so they're uniform throughout all my brass. I do them every time, and I've never had a problem. I've never had a problem with the dual trigger at all. So I think it's just setting up your equipment right, and having a good gunsmith and good stuff, good system.
Jeremy Smith is your gunsmith. How long have you been using Jeremy?
I've been using Jeremy for probably 2 years now. For probably about 2 years. Would
you say, in your opinion, that a gunsmith matters?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So I have another gunsmith that I've used in the past, and I still do. Terry Wright does really good work, but with these, it's easy for me to ship with stuff with Jeremy. He gets it. He turns it around super fast. He's got a beautiful lathe, beautiful setup, uses a true bore system, and he is very professional, and he's a perfectionist, and it does make a difference, 100%.
Now, obviously your equipment's set up properly. How you say you kind of settled in with kind of what you're using, which obviously helps a lot. Not having to, number one, second guess your equipment, and two, like, you already know it, and from now on, barrel to barrel, every barrel you chamber is the same, meaning you just continue on the same path. You kind of already know what works. How much has that freed you up to shoot with confidence? Has that helped you in any way?
Oh my gosh, yes. Especially the great example is when I shot in Montana just a few weeks ago. I have tested barrels. I've tested reamers. I've tested bullets. I've done a lot of my testing. I didn't have a whole lot of, this may sound bad, it doesn't mean to be bad. I haven't had a whole lot of help in going through these processes, because everybody gets so busy. And I get in my own head about what I want. So I've done different barrel lengths. I've done different contours. I've done different reamers, chamber reamers, different bullets, different neck tensions, different neck diameters. But I think that what I really ended up doing is settling in on a combination between the bullet, the powder, the primer, my primer seating depth. The barrel contour means a lot, whether you're shooting a Palma or heavy varmint. and how you clean your gun, and pulling all that together means a whole lot on your shooting and your confidence level. I settled in about a year and a half ago with what I wanted for a barrel. And then I shot that barrel, shot really well, had good responses from it. Felt good about it. My diaries and looking back through, I look at my targets, I look at the air temperature and all the other stuff that I am kind of anal about. And I write it all down. I cut my targets out, I put it in my books, and I review it and look at it. And when I settled in on that barrel, I said, okay, I think, this is the one, this is it, got great results from it. I'm going to do the exact same thing with the exact same gunsmith and, chamber reamer and the whole thing. And that's when I went to Montana, and that fully confirmed everything from the last few years of where exactly I want to be with these, with the 208s and the 200X bullets. And they shoot the 185s wonderfully well too. But it does matter.
Talk about your cleaning routine. How do you go about keeping your barrels clean?
Yeah, so I've done so many different methods, different solvents and all that. And what I end up doing is I will clean every time I shoot, meaning every match. If it's a full day, 3-4 matches, whatever it is in a day, I'll clean at the end of every day. But I do know that through using recording my speed, I look at how hard I clean my gun. And I do not clean down to bare metal. I do know, and everybody needs to know this about their gun, let me just say this. You often hear people say, my God, my gun is shooting so much better after the first match or second match. Well, it's because it's starting to get some carbon in there. It's starting to ease in to where it is. And that's where you really need to pay attention to where your gun really settles in and how long can it go for. And so when I clean my gun, I use a Jag, but I'll use a brush. And so I'll scrub my barrel with a brush.
Is this a nylon brush or a bronze?
A nylon brush.
Okay.
I'll run a nylon brush through there, and a stiff nylon brush, not a weak, nylon brush. I found a couple that are really stiff because I want to get in the little cracks and crevices in the lands, really well with it. And I'll clean that, and then what I'll end up doing is I'll put a Jag through there, and I'll use a Jag, and I'll get any copper or whatever that's off the lands or sitting on the lands. But I think one of the other things that's really important, and we always hear about people talking about a carbon ring, and that even on the 308, you get that where that shoulder is, where the case end is, where it goes, where the reamer has that abrupt change. You got to get that out of there. Because if you don't, and you get a buildup inside there, I've seen people at my local range have an overpressure problem because they get a buildup over time. But you have to get that out of there. And I've heard some with the 308, some people take a 9mm case, they thread it on the end, and they sharpen it, they put it in there, and they just turn it slightly and try to get some of that out of there. Everybody's got a different way of doing it. I use a 410 shotgun soft mop, and I get it in there, and I'll usually wrap a patch around it. I'll put some ISO on it, and I'll just get it right where it's at there and try to scrub that out of there. And I've been pretty successful at it. It works for me.
So, you keep the barrel clean. Consistency is key, right?
Yeah.
Do you turn necks on your brass?
I do. So I just barely touch them. I don't run into them. They're about 14 thousandths on the Lapua brass. and I believe my reamer's I think it's a 342 neck. And so I've got a few thousandths in there clearance. You don't want it too tight, that's for sure. You want enough to expand, but that's the important part of keeping that carbon ring and stuff out of there too.
What kind of clearance do you shoot for on the neck?
So 3,000s.
Okay.
Is what I shoot for on that.
Okay. Now I've heard I had a guy actually this weekend tell me that his necks get thicker. Have you ever had that happen? I've never seen it myself, but
no, I do know as the brass flows, it'll flow upwards, and you can get. That's why my bullets are not seated super deep. My bullets, the bearing surface of my bullet is about a third or no more than a half into that case. Because you get any further past that, it does change over time, especially when you're shooting the pool brass or small primer brass. You get a lot of firings out of them. I turn my brass once and I don't touch them again. I've heard of other people that do because they get thicker towards that bottom. But if you're seating them super deep, you're going to have that issue.
You know, obviously your rifle's set up however you want it. You worked at it. And the reason I wanted to kind of go over your system is because there's so many new shooters that are wanting to jump in and, you know, they want to build a rifle. And I always say, find a blueprint that works and just copy it. Copy that and then go shoot, go enjoy it. You want to try something different later? Fine. But first you must follow somebody's blueprint that is obviously working. So thank you for sharing that. So now you won the Southwest National 600 yards. Then you go to Nationals mid-range. Well, you came in second at the Southwest Nationals. Then you go to the mid-range Nationals. And again, you just slaughtered everybody.
Oh, man. Eric, that place at Lodi is tough to shoot. As you know, you were there. It is a brutal place, especially when they redid the range. Nobody had any real advantages over others there. But on that first one, that very first match, I was like the Hindenburg, man. I thought I was going down in flames. I dropped like 10 points right off the bat. And I was like devastated. I was like, holy crap. And then I was like, you know, I remember a friend of mine saying, I'll just say, Ian Clem had told me one day, he goes, you know what, Tom? He says, every shot is a new match. He said, just learn from the last one, but don't dwell on it. You know, and that is so true. And I tell you what, Eric, I went to war, man. I put my armor on, and that next match coming around, I didn't let the 10 points bother me. And I just went to town on it. I knew the gun. I had confidence in my gun. And I just really studied the conditions hard. And those next matches, I just hammered away. Everything was just, I was in my zone. When I sit down at my target, you know, I'm behind my gun, I'm in a zone. And I'm so focused. If people talk to me, I like, or say something, I'm like, what? You know, I'm so focused. It's hard for me. You probably know what I mean, but it's just,
I know what you mean, but how long did it take you to get to that level of focus? And I don't know if it's always been that, but most shooters, as you know, don't have that level of focus. And that's precisely what, in my opinion, keeps them from winning.
You know, I've learned over time. I've watched other people. I've read some books, but you know, it's. I guess one thing is to put yourself in check, to, you know, wonder how you're doing. Is at the end of the day, you know, we're just laying down on the ground, right? I mean, how easy is that? But when you go home, are you mentally wore out? Well, it's because of the stress. It's because it is a mental game. And so what I've learned over time is, you know, like Ian had shared with me one time about, you know, hey, you shot a 9. Okay. Learn from it. It's a new match. It's a new round. Shoot your 10 or shoot your X now. But, one of the other things is that don't get stressed out, which is easy to say, but, don't punish yourself. Don't think, hey, it's always the third round. I always shoot a 9. You cannot think that. You have to think, God, I've done this 1,000 times or 10,000 times, whatever. And I've got this. And play your game, do your game, shoot your best, and just stay focused. Go through a routine. I've got a routine that I use when I shoot. And so when I lay down behind my gun, I make sure I got all my stuff is handy, where I'm going to be loading from. I'll kind of, act like I'm loading, and everything's within reach. I'm comfortable. I know what I'm looking at, flags or mirage. I get everything where I'm comfortable. And the very first thing before I shoot, I make sure my target board, I'm on my right target. And you'll see me, I get teased about it sometimes. I take a Sharpie and I write on my hand what target number I'm on. And so when I put my gun up, it's right there. And I look and I'm like, okay, target 11, target whatever. And I look at my target board and I know I'm on target. It only takes a second. And from there I center up. I know where I'm going. And then I pull the trigger. And then right after I pull the trigger, I'm immediately out of my scope. I'm looking in my spotting scope at mirage, or I'm up, looking at my flags, see what happened when I shot, to get the report of the shot that comes back either on the spotter down below or on the electronic target. And then I'm ready to go for the next one, and I do it all over again. So I have a regular routine. And if you mentally, from the time I'm ready to go and by the time I pull my triggers, usually about 3 seconds. And I've conditioned myself and I do it. And I do it that way.
It seems when you have a system, there's a lot less stress because there's no time for you to get stressed out, right? You have something to do. You're like, I got to look at the target. I got to check the wind. I got to make sure the gun is this, right? Like your brain is occupied with things that you have to do as part of your system, rather than sitting there going, oh, where did that shot go? What am I doing? You know what I mean? And I don't know. I feel like until I perfected my system, there was always random thoughts in my head.
Yeah, there's you have to control that. And if there's some books, I'm sorry, I forget the names of the different books, but there's one gentleman that gold medalist and Olympic shooter.
Lanny Basham.
There you go.
With winning in mind.
Yep. And there's some great examples in that. You can just read through it, but you really need to stop and think about all those things that he talks about in there. And it's a simple, easy read. It's not a real thick, heavy book. It's awesome. And that was a really good book to read.
It's also an audiobook available. So.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. And it's just getting in that zone, and it's just conditioning yourself to win, throwing out all the static, and just be yourself and shoot your game. You might not always win, or you might not always, wherever your placement is, but, do your best, what matters to you, and things will work out in the long run. Eventually it all comes together.
Yeah, Lanny, he talks obviously about the system and feast and forget, feast on a good shot, forget the bad ones, move on.
Yeah.
Process, focus on the process, not on the outcome. Don't worry about the score, worry about your performance, all that good stuff. And it's easier said than done. I mean, it took me a long time for me to finally, and like I said, that was part of my system to finally put all that together. And now when I'm shooting, I'm a lot less stressed out because I'm just have a system and I just follow that system. And when it's over, it's over. But still, I mean, the system takes mental power, right? And I am so matches, especially the pair fire matches. Oh my God. I am so exhausted when I'm done shooting a pair fire match because it's just a lot of every shot is super stressful.
Yeah, it is. Oh my gosh, yes. And when I was shooting in, I came back from U.S. Nationals, and I was pretty happy with my performance there, and it was that weekend I shot the Oregon State 1,000-yard match, and I got lucky and won that one. That was really a tough match, and shot with some really good tough shooters. And then it was 2 weeks later, I ended up going to Montana, and I put a brand new barrel on my gun, that other barrel I was just talking about. And I had about 100 rounds. I knew that I knew where my charge was, and I was going to need to do a seating depth test. So I got there and got the 300 yard and did my seating depth test. And it's kind of crazy. The exact same barrel that Jeremy did for me was the same barrel. The charge was exactly identical. Seating depth was about 3 or 4 thousandths difference, but it shot, I'm not kidding, a 1/4 inch on either side of a 3-shot. It was only a 3-shot group, but 1/4 inch at 300 yards elevation and left to right, and on both sides of it, it was just really close to the same. So I just picked that one and then shot that Palma match. Shot the team match first. We won the first. We won the team match there, and then shot the Palma match on that Saturday and dropped. I think I dropped a couple points on that, 2 points, and then it was tough. And then shot the 1,000-yard, and I think I dropped 1 or 2 points on the 1,000-yard. And then the second day, on that Palma, everything was just clicking. I mean, I may be a little slow at times, but it all came together. and I cleaned that 800 with 12 X's and went back to the 900 and cleaned that with 12 X's, and then shot the 1,000-yard, and it had a couple little target issues or whatever there, but I jumped right back in after like a waiting period, and I jumped right back in, and I cleaned the 1,000-yard, but I only had 6 X's. I ended up with that, 450 and 30 X's.
Wow, that's impressive.
On that. And I didn't know anything about it, we camped, and my wife came with me, and we camped and cooked for a bunch of people when we camped and all that. I went back there, packed up, and came out, did the awards, and was heading home. And Jason Symes got in touch with me. He says, "Man, I think you shot a national record." I was like, "No way. I can't be the only one, or, to clean the Palma at all 3, and apparently so.
It's not easy.
Lacey and Clem, did it in 2020 easy. With 449 and 23. But, yeah, it was tough. The conditions were tough. It wasn't easy.
So I'm, for a minute there, as you were telling, everything you won this year. Just this year, you won the Southwest Nationals 600 yards. You came in second at the Southwest Nationals, the long range. You won the mid-range national championship. You won the Oregon state championship. You won the Montana. Not only that, you set a national record. The whole time I kept thinking it was the same barrel, and I'm thinking, well, he's got one of them Hubbard barrels. But now you're telling me it's 2 different barrels, and the second one appears to be better than the previous one you had.
I'm thinking so. Yes.
We haven't even gotten to the 1,000-yard clean. You did that in Lodi.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yes,
I was there.
First clean. I know, you came up to me and congratulated me, and which was really cool. First time I ever cleaned 1,000, and there's some stories out there about me in Montana several years ago. Jay's really good about telling it, but then Todd Hendricks, he was scoring for me and at 1,000 yards, and I came 1 point away from shooting a national record but it was my ammo and somebody else's gun, and which was unheard of, But I borrowed a gun. There's a long story there. I won't get into, but yeah, it was pretty cool. And at Montana, you Eric, I'm sure you've heard the stories, and many other people. You can shoot a national record in Montana at Deep Creek, and you know what? I have been there before, where the flag on the 1,000-yard is bent over 6 feet. It's so windy, but it's I've seen it like that, and I've seen it where the other days where it is just breezy, manageable, but the craziest things you just scratching your head about it, wondering what the heck, where'd that come from? But and it was one of those times when we just shot it, and it was tough. It wasn't easy. Really, a lot of good shooters, but it was tough,
Yeah, man, what a year you've had. Now, what got you into?
Well, thank you.
What got you into F class?
This is kind of funny because I used to compete with pistols, and I loved pistol shooting. And I found myself to be really super competitive because, I work full time, got a family and everything. To be super competitive in pistol shooting, you got to shoot a couple thousand rounds a month at least, And I shot IDPA, and I was like, gosh dang, there was a real crunch on materials and couldn't get anything. It was worse than what it was like a year or two ago. And so I was like, well, I got to do something else. And so I always did like the meticulous area of, loading your own rounds and doing rifle and all that. So I decided to get into that. And my first long range gun I had was a Savage Model 12, great gun, and shot, won some matches and all that with that. At that time, I was shooting the 155.5s. This was 5 years ago or something. And when the 20Xs came out, or just after they came out, I just could not compete with them things. And so I switched over to 200 hybrids and ended up with the 20Xs. But I knew those 155.5s really well. And that's one of the keys, is to really know your equipment. But so I shot, with my Savage. And then after that, I went with somebody who was talking to me about Borden, and I went with the Borden Action. And then I didn't go, I had a Night Force scope, and then I switched over from the Night Force into the Golden Eagle after that. It's just a really good scope. I'm happy with them. But I've been shooting in serious competition for about 3 years now, where everything is kind of, I think I look at it as I had this real learning phase. I was shooting pretty good, and I was trying to figure it all out, all the components, and trying to get everything together. And then the last few years, everything kind of, like I was saying, funneled down into more, knowledge and information and ability, and just having really good equipment is really important. Like I was saying about my dies and that Jay made for me. And
how did you find out about F class?
Tri-County Gun Club, through the 600-yard I shoot with John Masick and David Christian, which is, some known folks, Joe Traylor and Brian Stevens. A bunch of those guys are just a fantastic group of people. We just love each other and hang around with each other, and started there and shooting the 600-yard, and learned a lot from the folks there, and just progressed. I remember going to Rattlesnake and shooting my very first match there, and that was quite an adventure. And then just progressed from there and shooting Oregon matches and that, and have just kind of. I did shoot F Open at one point. I do have an F Open gun. I did shoot with Jay and Todd and I forget who the other individual was. We shot the Oregon State match, and we came in first place. Actually, Jay let me borrow his gun.
Was it Monty?
It was not Monty at the time. I forget the other person's name. But we had a real good time shooting together. That was probably 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, finding a good club is, in my opinion, the biggest thing, I remember I kind of fell into Bayou Rifle Club over a decade ago. And my goodness, there's two ways to look at because when you find a club like that, you're going to take a lot of beatings just because there's really good shooters there. You're going to take a lot of beatings. And there's two ways to look at it. You can say, I'm never going to win. I might as well not even try and go home and never come back. Or you can look at this and go, my goodness, the opportunities for learning are massive here. I'm going to stick around. There's a lot to be learned from these guys. I'm going to take my beatings, but as long as I'm learning every step of the way, I'll be better off. Every match I show up at, every match that I attend, I'll be a better shooter. I may not be winning, but I will be a better shooter. And as long as you stick around and you keep, they're going to take you under the wing. If they see that you work hard, you have a good work ethic, and that you are listening to the good shooters when they try to help you, and you try what they tell you and it works for you, that's going to get them encouraged to help you some more. You can't help but win at some point, because they're just going to share all the secrets with you. And then at some point, you get to pass it on to help somebody else. But every single one of those top guys were not good shooters at one point.
Absolutely. That is so important. And you bring up a really, really good topic there. And it is, you need to branch out. You need to get into a good club. Get to know the other folks there. Some people are different. Everybody's a little different. And just, some people are willing to talk to you and some people not, maybe until after the third time they meet you or something, but, you got to hang in there and have fun and have a good personality, and, don't get all, upset when you don't win or you have a bad shot. We all have bad shots, and it's really easy to, have your inside voice come out, but do your best not to do that. And have a good personality, be really good around other folks and be helpful, when it's cleanup time and all that. Absolutely. And report back to them. Yeah. Let them know what you did. Maybe you went out and tested, show them, hey, thanks for all your help. Look what I did or whatever. And people will see their fruits in it too, and they'll help you even a little bit more.
Now, you mentioned a few times about your seating depth testing. How do you go about doing a seating depth test?
Yeah. So I will normally, like, if I have a barrel that I do not know anything about it, but I'll do my charge. I will, if I know I'm shooting a certain bullet and I know that historically they performed at, 5-10 thousandths off, or maybe just touching the lands or whatever, I'll start there and do a charge test. And my charge test, I do it in 0.2 increments of my charge across a wide range. If I know where about it should be shooting, I'll hang there and I'll select a charge. And then I'll do a seating depth. So doing a seating depth, I'll usually start maybe in just a soft touch into the lands, and I'll come back 3 thousandths, all the way back to wherever I think that it should be. If I'm 15 or 20 thousandths back from maybe 3 thousandths in or 5 thousandths in the land soft, I'll have something. But you'll see your groups. They'll get small and big, and they'll go back. So I've seen them where they move like that. They'll get wider and narrower, and they'll repeat where I've seen them. And but just knowing, how your gun wears and your lands wear over time or whatever, you have to select a good seating depth and then test it. It's funny because I go to Tri-County and I'll shoot the 600, which is a brutal place for me to shoot. And they'll say, Hubbard, are you testing again? And I'm like, yep, I am. And, so, statistical averages, and I'll shoot, I'll shoot a seating depth test or a charge test, and I'll do, maybe I'll shoot 20 rounds. We'll shoot a little match, and I'll shoot, 4-5 round groups and go from there. And I'll do it multiple times, and I'll reconfirm it, because you can't just shoot it once and say, hey, that is great, because it won't repeat sometimes. Something's changed about it, temperature, whatever it might be. And so you're looking for a statistical average. I know Brian Litz in his book, he talks about a lot of that stuff. And if you're shooting for a period of time, that you'll be like, I've been so many times like, yeah, gosh, that thing shoots a 1/4 inch at 600 yards and 5 shots, and I shoot it next time, it's like 3 inches. It's like, what the heck happened? But there's some stuff in there. You use the same brass, same everything. Something's, just different about it. That's the statistical averaging stuff. But you have to have good diaries, got to have good information and collecting good information, and then review it and look at it. I do that, and that's what you have to do to see if you're shooting the right load. It may perform great one time, but might not the next, and so you need to figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. Man, but once you come across a load that's just stable, that'll travel well, it's just like cheating, right? Anywhere you go, you just, you start shooting, and I don't know about you, but I get a bit nervous when I go to start a match, national championship, whatever. The first 5 to 10 shots are going to tell me how the rest of the week's going to go, because
yeah.
If they're going, if you have that gun on a string in a way where, you maybe shoot a downwind 10 and then you pull it over and there goes the shot, and then you center up on the X and then you stay there and it's X, and then you see the wind pick up, you move over and it kind of follows, and you're like, oh, okay, it's going to be a good week. But when you go 9-1 on, oh my God. And then you can tell, right? You can tell immediately. Your first match, we've been there long enough that you go, okay, I'm going to struggle, because I'm going to call it a bad gun. It's going to make you work really, really hard, and still it's going to be hard to get them all in there. It's a small target.
Yeah, it is a small target. That's for sure. And it's really amazing when you're shooting 1,000 yards, and you're putting them in an X or even a 10 ring. That's a long way. And there's a lot of factors involved with everything, the sun, the clouds, all that stuff. But when you have a gun that's on, you can take it, that load, you can basically take it anywhere. And, if I go from here in Oregon, it's wet, humidity is different, go to Phoenix, it's super dry, and where that thing is just hammering still, you got a good load.
Yeah.
And it's going to be pretty consistent.
Not only that, right?
You
have Phoenix, right? Where it's in the morning, it's in the 40s, 50s, and then in the afternoon,
I've seen it snow before.
Degrees. Yeah. And then it's 80 degrees in the afternoon. So from the first match to the last, there's a 40-degree swing. You better have a good tune, or know how to keep that thing in tune, because it ain't that easy.
You said one word there, tune, and it just made me think. I do not shoot a tuner. I just have not done it yet. I want to, and I want to check it and do it. I do have a Bramley tuner though. Sorry, Eric, but I want it, but I just haven't put it on because the barrels that I've got, I don't want I don't want to mess with them.
Yeah,
you know?
I wouldn't mess with that. I mean, it ain't gonna hurt anything, but
Right.
listen, you have a system that works. You keep it in tune with seating depth. That's your system. That's fine.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of shooters that you know, I used to not use tuners at one point, and I just had to ride the tune with seating depth. Which is that what you do now?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So now I just ride the tune with the tuner, you know, and that took a while to figure out, you know, but it's one of those things that if you have a system and it's working, leave it alone. Yours is obviously working.
Seems to be, and you're right. That's why it's so important to have having a good idea of your seating depth, because you are actually, if you really think about it, your seating depth, you're tuning it, like you said, like a tuner is, but, you know, minute changes, you know, is you're changing the pressure in the case. So many different things are going on that you really don't really think about it. And that's, you know, that's what you're doing. You're coming further or into the lands, and then you're changing your powder or whatever. You're doing a super fine test when you're doing a seating depth after you get your charge. And I found there's a direct correlation between case fill and where your bullet is, you know, and your bottom of bullet, is it, you know, touching your powder? Do you have a lot of void in there? But I've kind of found that there's a lot of there's a correlation between your bullet seating and your case fill, and it works really good for me. And shooting the N150 powder for me works really well with my case fill and where my bullet is, and doing my seating depth, and I'm not compressing loads or any of that stuff, you know.
Yeah, you know, like I said, I did it with seating depth, and there's a lot of guys, but you know, just whatever works, man. Just keep hammering, obviously. Now, you're on Team USA now? Is that
no,
true? You're not?
Nope. I told him I had the opportunity, and I told him I couldn't. I had some family stuff with my mom is 90, and she's going through some health things. And so the commitment that it would take with the travel and just the overall commitment, I didn't feel like I could give them the 100% that they deserve from me. And so I just said, well, you know, maybe later, maybe at a certain time where my life is not as complicated, and I got work, and we're doing a reorganization at work and that. And so I just, you know, I could have, and I felt that I just couldn't give them that 100% that they deserved from me. So
yeah, it takes a large commitment. It takes a large commitment.
It is.
Are you planning on going to the World Championship, or because you still can't go?
Yeah. If things change quite a bit in my life and that, I definitely would have that as an open opportunity.
Yeah, I think everybody that's in F class should at least attempt to go to at least one World Championship. It is like nothing else. Plus, it's in Bisley. Yeah. I mean, it's historic Bisley, yeah. Right? But anyway, I think you should at least consider it. You know, it's quite an experience.
Thank you. I know you've been there, and I've heard a lot about it, and what an amazing experience that would be. I would definitely love to go. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. Well, if I were you, I'd at least think about it real hard. I mean, the way you're shooting, yeah. I mean, my goodness. And, you know, you're only going to get better. Now, we talked about equipment and seating depth testing and tuners and no tuners and whatever, but all of that just gets you into the dance. Then the wind shows up, right?
Oh man.
Do you have any, how did you learn to read the wind, right? Because that's the, you know, it seems like everybody has really good rifles nowadays. There's so much knowledge out there. There's equipment is top notch. You know, it's the best it's ever been, obviously. But at the end of the day, you got to read the wind. How have you learned to read the wind?
Well, I would say it's the school of hard knocks for me. I've done some reading, and but I think the biggest thing is getting out and shooting. And then, like I was saying, on my system that I use, you take that shot, you shoot a 9, 8, 7, whatever it might be. You have to look at those flags. You have to look at the mirage and see what's going on. Now, you can have, sometimes you can only look at one or the other. And sometimes you can look at both and see what's correlating. If you can get the flags to do the same thing as the mirage, then you're doing pretty good there. And then you're trying to just correlate in your brain. You're calibrating your brain to what those conditions are. You see a certain flag that just flutters a little bit. That may be a sign that something else is going on. So when you take your shot, and when you're in your sighters, test it. Wait, you got 30 minutes on a 20-round string. Test it. Shoot, when it's going left to right, or and test it, and then right to left or left to right, and back and forth, and test it and see what the response of your bullet is. But look at a certain flag. If you can, I have a hard time. I sometimes will have to draw pictures on the flag, how it is when I shot. And so if I'm shooting right to left, and then it switches, and then and I'm shooting that condition, I go back to it. Sometimes like, oh my God, what was that? What was I shooting at that time when it did this? 'Cause I'm right in the middle of this. But it's really just looking at the flags. And one of the biggest things that I think people get so caught up in is your morning flag versus your afternoon flag. If you got a wet flag, a lot of people forget about that. And in the morning, if you got a lot to do and the flag might be a little heavy, it's going to respond totally different in the afternoon, maybe when they're dry, but they might not be moving very much at all. But it's really, you're just calibrating your sense to the flags and the conditions is what I've found, and looking at, of course, mirage, and seeing what you can see and focusing in the right spots on mirage. A long eye relief, having a good spotting scope, long eye relief, like a 20 power or something. And you can see mirage if you're shooting 1,000, if you're focusing on like the 600-yard line, and you can see that mirage, and you can adjust it to where you think. But sometimes it was funny because I remember hearing Jay Christopherson years ago. He's like, gosh, you see that mirage way at the top, way above the target? It's going left to right, but down here it's going, in the opposite direction. And it's like, oh, yeah. And I start focusing on that. And there's different levels that you'll see the mirage, but, a little information is all. And keeping it in mind, when you're looking at things, your bullet has an arc to it. It's going to shoot a little bit higher. Depending on where your target boards, are they way up high, or are they shooting, you're shooting down low, and where is it going to be? Is that tree level or above tree level or whatever? But just kind of mentally, thinking about those things, imagining what you're going to do when you sit down behind a gun. What are you going to look at? But I think the other thing, like at Lodi, oh my gosh, that place was brutal. I was seriously studying, sitting back there when other people were shooting. I was looking, and I was like, okay, I would have called here. Where did his bullet end up? And trying to mentally go through how they were shooting to make heads and tails out of it. That was tough.
I hated that place.
I know, right?
You look at the flags, what I call the downwind flags, and they're standing out. And you look at the flags on the other side where supposedly the wind's coming from, and they're completely dead. And you're like, yeah. Where's this wind coming from? Well, from what I heard from Bob Siebold says, It comes over that mountain that's behind the targets, and it flows down through that valley, and then it turns right at the middle of the range and then goes out. That's why the flags on the right were standing out while the ones on the left were just dead. And it's the strangest thing, because how, by the downwind flags, by the time you're reading something that already happened, right? Like you're reading old news, and you're supposed to base it off of that. And of course, it was Mirage was hard to see, and anyway, I hated that place so bad.
It was brutal. Yeah, that was one of the head scratching places of, man, what the heck just happened? But like you're saying, you had to really watch those flags, and ones on the left, they were down. But if you've seen a flutter, you better just hang on and not shoot, because it really meant a lot.
Yeah, I shot there in 2016 and 17, but of course the range was narrower. I did really well back then. You know, I think I came home with like 12 medals from that one time. And now this time I show up, and it's everything I learned back then. It's like scrap it, and it's gone. It's totally different. This was a brand new range after they did all that clearing from those trees and made the range bigger. It was tough, man. But it's part of it, right? You know,
it is.
I did learn a lot about it, but it was tough for sure.
I really learned to watch the flags there. Just subtle changes. And I learned a lot from that range.
Yeah, I mean, I learned that I was glad when it was over. I learned that I should have stayed home, but
right.
Anyway, it's I really got ate up during the individuals, but by the time the team match came around, I already had it. I had it kind of whipped, and we did really well at the team match. But man, V2 finale. Have you ever been to that match?
I have not. I wanted to go to Texas at the V squared there, or V2, and my mom was here, and I couldn't make it, and I really, really wanted to go. But I'll be looking at attending this next year, wherever it's going to be, and would really like to shoot that. I'd really like to shoot it. Really would. Man. It's an awesome match. There's some wonderful shooters, just people in general, but oh my God, some brutal, competition. And like you said, this parafiring. Yeah, it's the best of the best.
Never have I been shooting, except for at the V2 finale, that my watch has said, "Hey, your heart rate's too high. You need to like," and I'm like, I'm just laying here shooting, and my watch just starts to beep on me and starts vibrating, because it's like, hey, you're like 135, 140 beats per minute. I'm like, holy crap. I thought I was just laying here, but it is so stressful. So stressful. Cause it's like one bad shot, you're going home, like any other match. Well, you shoot a bad score. Well, it doesn't matter. You get to stay and shoot. At the V squared finale,
a lot more, right? Yeah.
You lose 2 and you're out, and and you don't have an easy opponent. You don't ever encounter an easy match. It's always, because it's the top shelf, right? That's how you get invited. Like, you won some matches this year. Now you got points. You're going to get an invitation. And you don't, there's no easy match. I mean, you've seen the matches, and it's like,
oh my God,
it's like you get through whoever, you name it, you get through a really good shooter, and then you're like, oh, got past that one. Then you go look over there, you're like, oh my God, I got to face another one. You're going against all these national champions and record holders, and it is so tough, but it is the most fun matches that you'll ever shoot. It is just so much fun. Because the beauty about it is, when it's over, it's over. Like, if you won or you lost, right? And it's just, oh my God, but it's very stressful.
Yeah. It's like, you go home or whatever, and it's like, hey, how come you're so tired? You just laid down on the ground. That's all you did. It's like, no, it's more than that. It's hard to explain, but you're right. I mean, it's the best of the best, and every shot is huge. You know, I've talked with Adam McDonald and Brad Trainer, and several of the other folks, Norm, what's his name? Is it Harold?
Yeah.
He's always joking with other people about that, but and him getting beat by his wife, which serves him right. She's a better shot.
Yeah, and she's way better.
Yeah. And so you're shooting against the best of us. But you know what? The other thing that really makes it fun is you guys have really learned that you make it fun. The match directors where you're talking with the people, you're recording it. There's a tent, at times with screens out there and people are watching. It's interactive online where you can watch it. And then afterwards, you've been real good about doing the shoot offs, and talking through those with your podcasts and stuff. And it's really a lot of fun to watch, and I've sat there and watched them. I'm like, oh my God, he just shot a 9, over on the left. You need to hold over farther, and you get so involved in it.
And then they blow it out the other way, right? And you're like, no, anyway, it's just great, man. But anyway, I hope to see you there, man. Awesome. I think you do well. And
well, thank you.
It's just a lot of fun. I love where the sport's at right now. I think the sport is at a very good point in its existence. I get a lot of shooters that we just had this TSRA, the Texas State Rifle Association, the mid-range match, and there was so many new shooters there. It was exciting to see kind of a lot of up and comers, and my goodness, they were laying it down, which is exciting because they're like, oh, I've seen your videos, and I'm a member of your forum, and I copied the blueprint that you have, and I just followed it, and man, I have a gun that's just hammering, and I'm like, awesome, they're super excited, and they're there, they're shooting the match, they're having a good time, and they're achieving their goals, right? Whatever goal they set out for themselves, they're out there. So anyway, it's exciting to see a lot of new faces. That's always always a good thing.
And I see a lot of people online, Facebook or whatever, and it's so important for the match directors and other maybe seasoned shooters to welcome the new shooter in. Give them the medal, give them a plaque. Even, sharpshooters, experts, or whatever, keep them in, or, something they can go back home with and show to their spouse or whatever. They feel proud about it. And it's an awesome, experience, and what they even did, what they shot, maybe top of their class and wherever they are. And it's really important to keep them engaged, and as a match director, you're not just a match director, you're a leader. And for you to be a leader, you have to keep people motivated, involved, and it's, have fun. You're not there as a, cracking the whip or anything. And some of these match directors have lost that. And it's really important to keep the new shooters involved and motivated and excited and sharing information to help them along. It's really important for our sport.
Absolutely, man. Tom, thank you very much.
Awesome.
Thank you for sharing your knowledge, sharing your equipment list, your gunsmith of choice, all the good stuff. I'm sure there was a lot of people taking notes because they should have been. And good stuff, man. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Eric, and it's always great to see you. I appreciate you.
All right, man. Take care. Keep them centered.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.